Hi, everyone. We'll be going live soon. Welcome as you're joining. Hi, everyone. Welcome. If you're looking to learn some tips about early stage hiring, you're in the right place. We'll give it one more minute for folks to join, and then I'll get you started and introduce you to our guests. Awesome. Welcome. Well, hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to session 2 of this early stage hiring series. Today, we're going to focus on filling the funnel. And welcome, everyone. If you hadn't come before, my name is Nikki Adamson. I run Hustle Hunters, a recruiting firm focused on helping early stage tech companies hire great foundational folks and to really leverage flexibility to make sure the right people come to the table. And as we're all in business of growing our teams, we know it can be hard to cover all the bases when we're hiring, especially at a startup where we're wearing many hats. Last week, we talked a little bit about culture and how to help set the stage internally for a good hiring process with designated teams and predetermined questions and a rubric for evaluation. You can check on YouTube if you want to catch up on that series in case you missed it. Today, we're going to talk about bringing the right people into our funnel. So I'm super excited to bring on our guests into this conversation. So I'm going to add in Ashley and Tammy.
Hey there.
Welcome, ladies. And to get started, I would love to introduce Tammy. So Tammy Dain of Rabble Recruiting. Why don't you give us a little bit of a background on your world from Rabble?
Yes, happy to. Thanks so much, Nikki. So thanks everyone for joining us today. So excited to talk about this topic. As Nikki said, I'm Tammy Dain. I'm co-founder of Rabble Recruiting, a boutique recruiting agency based here in the Bay Area. A little bit about my background. I've been in recruiting and staffing and HR for over 10 years. First, I started off in the higher education space. It was the best kind of foundational recruiting experience because I gained marketing, communications, recruitment, and events experience. And then for the last almost 7 years, I was with a company called Axiom Law, where I rose to the position of director of talent acquisition. I ran recruiting from San Francisco to Chicago, ran a team of 19 recruiters and sourcers, and recently, as Nikki mentioned, left last year to launch my own recruiting company. So I'm so excited to share what I've learned in that 10 years recruiting.
Awesome. Thanks, Tammy. And then another amazing person here is Ashley. Why don't you give us an introduction as well?
Hello, everyone. Yes, so pumped to be here. So I'm Ashley Connell, CEO and founder of Prowess Project. And my background is marketing. I did 15 years of marketing in Austin, Texas and London, England, came back, started my own marketing agency, and had a realization that I didn't know how I was going to manage having children and this career that I had been building. So I went out and did some digging, and according to Harvard Business Review, if a woman is out of the workforce for just 3 years, she loses 37% of her total compensation power for the rest of her life. And I heard that and became obsessed with that statistic. So we created Prowess. What we do is we help companies find expert talent by vetting and certifying women who want flexible, rewarding work. So oftentimes these are caretakers who want to get back into the workforce. And the way we did that is we built out a technology that matches them with jobs based on not only their skill, their expertise, where they went to school, but also their emotional intelligence. So communication style, learning style, personality style, all of that is compatible with the team that they're joining.
Awesome. And then can you tell us a little bit of the results that you've been finding as a result of the process that you've put in place?
Yes. So we've been doing this for 1.5 years, and I am beside myself excited about these results. So we've been able to cut the interview process in half with our clients. And then also, as far as ramp up to productivity, we have cut that by 2/3.
Wow.
And
Incredible.
It's all about finding people who fit with your existing team and existing culture.
That's great. And obviously, you know, in addition to hiring your team at Prowess Project to help us there, do you have some quick tips or wins that you can kind of give to the viewers as they're looking to try to implement some of that and like really reduce some of those timeframes?
Absolutely. So one of them that we talk about a lot, the way that the process works for clients is they come into our website, they create a profile with a form talking about the role and fill in personality indicator tests. From there, we bring all that information into our algorithm and send them a link to 3 different profiles, each with a compatibility score. So Sally is 97% compatible with you. Linda is 82% compatible with you. And you get to figure out that interview, or you get to figure out who you want to interview. So what we've been finding are the questions that we're asking. And the feedback that we're getting from employers are, we're asking third date questions, not first date questions. So for example, how do you like to communicate? Are you hey, I want a summary email at the end of the day with everything that went on? Or are you hey, shoot me a text all day, every day, and this back and forth? So that's an example. Really look at the questions you're asking and be as real and as scenario-based as possible.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. And then I want to jump into some more tactics. So Tammy, tap you in as like the very first thing, you know, once we have our hiring team assembled and we're kind of building what are those questions for the interview, we want to start filling our funnel with job description. So can you give us some tips kind of as we're going about thinking we want to make that job description that really brings people in and doesn't necessarily bounce people away from our company?
Yeah, absolutely. So once you know that you want to hire, you're ready to hire, you've got a role approved, the first order of business should be, let's get a job description created and let's get that thing posted so that hopefully you can get some active applicants actually applying and coming to your company. So before we even talk about what goes on the job description, I have to put this PSA out there. You must be reviewing job descriptions frequently. What does that mean? For most established companies, which I know we're, you know, most folks on this call are probably at startups or, you know, at mid-sized companies at best, but a best practice to review a job description template should be at minimum once a year. You're at startups. So I would recommend baseline, you're reviewing your job descriptions quarterly, because in 6 months, you may have just launched a new office. That needs to go on your description of growth and what your company is doing. You may have launched new products. So your job description templates are going to become very quickly out of date. So first order of business, if you're a new recruiter in or you're a new hiring manager at a company, ask the question, how long have we been using this job description? Make sure you review it, and everyone holds hands about how much you want to be reviewing that job description and then actually do it. Okay, the next thing, I really recommend for startups to take a really hard look at what are the required skills that you are asking. You know, that statement, that bullet that actually says must have XYZ experience versus what you are saying is preferred experience. And I would really implore folks at startups and all of my recruiters at Rabble that are working on demand for our clients aggressively work with their hiring managers to think very critically about what actually needs to be required versus preferred. And I would encourage you to ask your question, why? Why do we need someone that has 10 plus years of experience? Why do they have to be on site? What teams are they working with? What do they need to have accomplished within that 10 years that is making you say that? because the more you can open up the funnel to include somebody who has 5+ years of experience or talent that's located in New York or Florida, the more applications that you're going to be getting into that funnel. So biggest 2 pieces of advice in summary: make sure you're reviewing those job descriptions quickly and often. Make sure you are casting a really wide net. And lastly, I encourage you, once you're actually done with the job description, ask yourself 2 questions. 1, would I actually want to apply for this role after I read it? And 2, what questions do I still have after I read the job description? Do I know what the culture is of this company? Do I understand what I'll be doing? Does it seem fun? Did I use real language? Do those things, and I, am sure you will vastly improve your job descriptions and get more applicants.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I know I come from a purview of working parents, and I see that kind of the biggest things are I want to know the salary right away.
Yep.
I want to know flexibility right away.
Yep.
I want to know if I'm going to be able to leave at 4:30 to pick up my kid. And then the other one I talk to clients a lot about is I want to leave your job description knowing what's going to happen, or at least your first interviewing, knowing what's going to happen if my kid is sick.
Yep.
What is
Absolutely.
my process? Is that a text to my manager, a Slack? Just I changed my Slack icon, or is it I'm just going to be like in grief the entire day going about that process and feeling good?
Actually put real information on the job description so that you can picture what the company is going to be like, what the day-to-day is like. Absolutely underscore that.
And I feel like that would be refreshing, right? I feel like those job descriptions would definitely stand out from the others.
Yeah, that's perfect. I love those. That's perfect. Love it. So now once we have this perfect job description that everyone loves and is laughing at and crying during, et cetera, now where are we going to post that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm a recruiter through and through. My favorite place is LinkedIn. I think across the board, in terms of what job board will attract the most candidates, what gets the most eyeballs on it, it's LinkedIn. Of course, there are other very common job boards out there as well: Indeed, Glassdoor, The Muse. So I encourage you to do a massive kind of look at the job boards that are out there, some of the biggest brands, and decide from a budget perspective what you can afford and what will probably get you the most bang for your buck. But before you invest in job boards and slots, I encourage you to talk with another recruiter or hiring manager at maybe a startup that's 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. They've experienced growth in their category. So to save you some dollars, reach out to a recruiter at that company that's very similar in size and growth trajectory to your own, or that hiring manager, and ask them for an informational call to find out what niche job boards have worked for them, what big job boards have worked for them, because that'll save you a lot of time and energy and resources having to review applications that maybe aren't a good fit for you, or will save you money from actually posting somewhere that's not going to get you applicants that are a good fit. And people are really nice, especially recruiters. We're great. So feel free to reach out. We take calls all the time just to help folks out. So I encourage you to do that. That will really help. Lastly, a really big pitfall I want to point out that would help all the hiring managers and recruiters on this call, if this isn't a practice that you already do: once the job description is up, the work does not stop. Okay. And I'm looking at Nikki, I'm looking at Ashley, your face is smiling. You guys are smiling because you might need to reevaluate. If you're not getting applications, you're not getting traction, or you're getting tons of applications, but they're all the wrong ones. Those are all pitfalls that are pointing to the fact that there's something wrong with your job description. Maybe you left out all of the flexibility that your startup provides, so you're not getting some of the applicants that you expected or profiles that you expected. I can give you an example of what I mean here. A few years ago, I was trying to recruit a recruiter for my team. And we just had a basic recruiter title. I can't believe we did this. So basic. The G&A recruiter that was helping me hire for my team said, we really need to change this. This isn't standing out from the crowd. Your recruiter is actually going to be doing hiring across the entire West Coast. Let's change the title of the profile to West Coast Recruiter. And then the applicants just started flooding in. So make sure that you actually start reviewing each job description after a few weeks to make sure it's working for you.
Oh, I love that. Great. Yeah, especially looking at our world and kind of the racial injustice that we're seeing. We're involved in the hiring process and kind of actively looking at how can we reduce bias, how can we make sure we have the right candidates coming in here. So there's lots of different facets of diversity that we can think of. We can think of caregivers, we can think of immigrants, we can think of first generation college attendees, and then we can look at different race and status and class, et cetera. So I want to kick it over to you, Ashley, to kind of walk us through like who are your talent and job seekers and what are they looking for, just so we can kind of get in their minds a little bit.
Absolutely. So like I said before, the vast majority are caregivers who want to return to the workforce. So the average experience is about 12 years. They all have a 4-year degree, and 66% have a secondary, if not 3 degrees. So these are all very experienced women, but they come to us because there was one thing they don't have anymore after taking time off, and that is confidence. And I was shocked by that when I was doing studies on how to get these women back. And so that's why a good portion of our certification is confidence. We also have our talent go through the 16-hour course with a cohort. So what that does is that gives them people to talk to, people to share problems with, but even more importantly, gives them a network. So as far as what type of jobs these women are looking for, as you can imagine, it's all flexible. And so while they are filling out their profile, they can say, hey, look, my time is only available from Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 2 to 5. And that's okay. And our algorithm will match them up with appropriate people. And so we thought that that was really key. And one thing that I wanted to say from the very beginning was, let's be firm on that. Like, those need to be boundaries. And by holding those boundaries, you're also showing confidence. And I think that that is really, really key. Back to the confidence, when I was talking to these women, again, so experienced, but they were all saying, Ashley, I've been out for 3+ years. I don't have any skills left. And I'm looking at them like they have 5 heads, because yes, they did. If anything, you've been doing operations and project management for a house of 5 people. So let's start there. And so it's just taking what you have been doing and looking how it can be applicable in different ways. And that's how we really help our talent get ramped up and ready to find jobs.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We're going to switch gears a little bit here and dive into reputation and kind of controlling the messaging. So Tammy, what do we do if there's negative reviews out there on Glassdoor, or we want to again make sure that people aren't jumping away from us before they have a chance to talk to us and get to know us?
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest headline in response to this is don't be silent. With some of my startup clients, I've seen a tendency to, one, not frequent Glassdoor enough. So build that in as a best practice for someone on the team. If you don't have a recruiter, some hiring manager or on the founding team needs to kind of own that responsibility to frequent it and get alerts, and to not be silent if there is negative experience. That's the first thing that you have to kind of take away from this conversation. What will happen, as Nikki was kind of already alluding to, if you are silent, the narrative is going to be told for you. So you have to join the conversation. So I would say if there are recruiters that are listening to this, if there is negative feedback, I would say it has to be a team effort to determine how to respond to it. Mm-hmm. I've been in situations where I have seen, negative feedback. Some of it is just maybe about the candidate experience. It's not that sensitive. Sometimes there are commentary that is more sensitive. So if you have a CPO, if you have a chief people officer or head of HR, that person should automatically be involved as an FYI. This was the feedback. Here's how I recommend responding to it, and make sure leadership is involved. So if that role isn't the case, whoever your direct manager is or a leader at the company should be identified to help respond and create thoughtful responses to any negative feedback. So my HR hat has to put that out there as a best practice. And then Secondly, I want to give this kind of personal advice when it comes to dealing with negative feedback. Here's what I tell myself. This was someone's perception. Whether or not it is true or not, this was the experience that they know. And it automatically, whether I'm getting constructive feedback for myself or my team or my company or any of that, it automatically makes me less defensive. And then I can just neutrally respond to it. So whatever you do, no matter what the feedback is, some sort of response around, I'm sorry that was your experience. It's not an ownership or a mission of guilt, especially if the feedback's really off base, but it's going to show candidates that are out there looking at the comments that you care and that it was timely. And I would have to say, putting some sort of reminder in there for yourself to respond to these comments within 24 to 48 hours, because that shows as an employer brand that you care about your reputation and that you were responsive to any constructive comments. And if you can, if it makes sense, to always engage with that person that provided that constructive or negative feedback, ask to get on the phone with them again, because oftentimes candidates will go back in and update their responses to say, hey, here's how this employer handled it. You just got a million stars in a candidate's mind because you were engaged, you responded, and you cared.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah. And then in addition, I'd love to hear your advice on, we're part of the startup world. And if you're a startup, I think if someone had a negative experience with one startup, they tend to associate that across the board. So how can we kind of take control of that conversation and make people understand a little bit of who we are?
Yeah, absolutely. If your Glassdoor page isn't built out already with who you are, what your culture is like, what flexibility and perks you're able to offer, do that. Name someone as the owner of that. And also build out your careers page and link that back to other platforms. Obviously, you have a little bit more freedom with your own careers page on your website. So make sure all of the major platforms, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, are linking back to your careers page so that you can tell the full story of what your startup experience is like. I always recommend taking videos, getting as, excited and kind of robust as you possibly can to share your employee experience, have your own employees go in, provide reviews, tell their true and kind of candid experience of the overall employer experience that they're getting, to just really showcase your brand.
That's great. And then Ashley, hopefully you have some insights here as well onto like, how do we, in addition to kind of just our page, like how are we really conveying our company culture and vision in all this pre-hire messaging, across the board, as obviously you've done this really well for your clients.
So I just go back to show, don't tell. And Tammy mentioned this a bit. So I feel like when someone thinks about culture, they think of, hey, what are our values? And so let's give an example of one of the clients we had. One of their values was creativity. And I was like, okay, great. This is a tech firm. They were all men at the time, and they were just about to hire another guy who looked just like them and had the same skills. And instead, they came to Prowess. And they said, hey, I'm looking for a project manager. What does that look like? So while we were getting that information, we went through their values and noticed creativity. So one of the candidates that came through to them was a woman who has done project management before, but was trained as a classical musician. And what was so interesting about this is she was able to say, hey, I'm going to be a great project manager because I've been able to break down music. I understand the different pieces and parts and how it all comes together. I understand how it is to work with an instrument and how to ensure that, again, this instrument is fitting into the rest of the whole orchestra. And I'm like, bingo, that is creativity. That is showing to everyone, hey, we're looking at this different, and that's our advantage.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, most of us already have our values pretty defined.
Right.
It's a great lens that we can apply into this process.
What does it truly mean? What does passion truly mean? Whatever your values are.
I love that. And we talked a little in our first session about, Gregarious was saying, it's about backs, not plaques. right? So it's living values, not just putting them on the wall.
I love that.
So I love these consistent themes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to go through some quick wins, Tammy, and then Ashley, if you have any to add as well. Just like, okay, as we're looking at bringing the right people into this funnel and making sure they get to that first interview where we can really wow them. Any more quick wins for us?
Yeah, we've, one of the major themes throughout this whole conversation for startups to win amazing talent, a lot of that comes down to really showcasing your brand, doing that in your job description, and put yourself in the mind of the candidate. The reason why they're even exploring and thinking about startup life is because they are driven to have an impact. They don't just want to be one engineer in the sea of 1,000 engineers. They want to have true impact. They also probably want a richer, more flexible work structure and team. So those are the two things you really have going for you if you're at a startup. So my biggest piece of advice is to showcase what you are offering at every stage, whether it's the job description, a conversation you're having with the candidate, or an email. Really showcase the impact you're able to give the candidate and the rich kind of flexible work experience that you're going to be able to give them at the startup. Do that as often as you can, because your brand is your job description. Your brand is every single interaction you have with the candidate. So underscore that as much as you possibly can.
I love that. Anything to add, Ashley?
Yes. So I'm coming from this as a hiring manager and of a startup. And the two things that are scarce are time and money. And what I loved that Tammy said is, hey, put your job description on LinkedIn. You're going to get so many candidates. And that's true. But what you don't have is the time to narrow them down. And that's why we wanted to look at this from a data-backed solution. Hey, what data already exists out there? We know that there's behavioral science that certain people work better with other personality types. So why not take your probably 300 different resumes and put them down to 3 based on data? And then I think also one thing to think about, again, using data, whether it's Prowess or however you're using it, we now live in the world of remote work. And so what that means is you do not have the luxury a lot of times of talking to someone face to face. And so it's really hard to get that spark when you meet someone and you're like, I just feel it. I just feel that they're a good person. That's hard to do on Zoom. Yeah. And so again, look at the data on how this person works with the full team and ask the full team and get information from the full team on how they communicate and ensure the people who are interviewing understand and are okay with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, obviously this is a 30-minute session. The three of us could talk about this forever. So definitely reach out to myself or Ashley or Tammy if you're looking for assistance here. Like, we're thrilled just to get on the phone and talk tips, as well as own some of your hiring process for you. So there's my website, it's hustlehunters.com. You can get to Tammy at rabblerecruiting.com and Ashley at Prowess Project. Well, thank you both. I'm going to send you off and I'll introduce next week's session to the rest of the folks watching. Thank you so much.
Nikki.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm very excited that next week we're going to get to talk a little bit more about, okay, what do we do once we have all these people that are brought into the rest of the funnel? So what that's going to look like is we're going to have Monique Arrington of Arrington Case by Case. She's a recruiter and candidate experience professional who's going to come and walk us through what that looks like. And we're also going to be joined by Andy Tiffany, who's the director of engineering at Stitch Labs, to talk through successfully building out engineering teams and how that can translate across different groups. So that's next Tuesday, June 23rd from 1 to 1:30. And we look forward to seeing you all back again next week. Thank you for your time. Bye.